Hi there, good afternoon. I just wanted to check in with you today. It's Blended Family Tuesday, and something I wanted to share with you is one way that we cook. Cooking for our big family was a big change for me personally. I went from cooking for just me and my daughters and my mom to cooking for 2 teen boys and a grown man. In addition to that, 2 teen boys is like a grown man. So we've really had to learn how to make the most out of recipes and get pretty versed. So something I really love to do is take a recipe that I found and see what else I can do it by changing the recipe around a little bit. So what I've done is I found a ranchero recipe because we've been on a big kick with Huevos Rancheros, and I had it at a hotel a while back for breakfast a couple months ago, and I just loved it and I craved it forever. And so we've been trying to recreate it from that experience because it's not that convenient to get to that restaurant that's at that hotel. So we found a recipe recently for the Huevos Rancheros, but more I got to thinking about that recipe, I realized that I could change it up a little bit and actually make an awesome green enchilada sauce. So I want to introduce to you today, if you aren't familiar with it, a tomatilla. That's what this is. I would definitely say that it's probably in the family of tomatoes. However, when it grows, what forms on the vine is actually going to be this husk. And then later the fruit develops within it, and as the plant's ready, it just drops it. I've never grown these, but I definitely want to now that I'm using them so much. So when you use a tomatilla in a recipe, and you've had tomatillas, you just didn't know it. If you've ever had a green salsa, a green sauce, any type of those verde sauces that you see in Latin dishes, I guarantee almost all of them had a tomatilla in it. So the way that you really bring out the rich flavor of a tomatilla is by roasting it. And we typically roast ours out on the grill, but I know most people don't have a grill. So we're gonna take 2 of them, and all you do is you're just gonna pop the husk off. We're gonna wash them real quick. And then Seth, my oldest son, who does most of our cooking around here, is gonna take 2 out to the grill, and I'm gonna put 2 in the oven under the broiler. We're gonna let them broil here and out on the grill for just about 5 to 7 minutes. You're really just looking for them to kind of get mushy looking and blackening on the outside. So we'll check back in when we're out at the grill. Okay, so out here on the grill, we just put down a piece of aluminum foil and we put our tomatillas on there. We're gonna close the grill and we're gonna leave it for probably 2.5 minutes, and then I'll send Seth back out here to flip it over. And what we did in the oven is we just took a cookie sheet and we put the tomatillas on there with a little bit of olive oil, and we just put it under the broiler. So we'll catch back up with you in just a second.
Now we're flipping them over. See, you're getting that nice brown on it. That's what you want.
Okay, so I think it really ended up taking us about 15 minutes, and I just pulled mine out of the oven, and you can see that it's, it's very juicy. It's bleeding, dripping juices. It's got a nice charring there on the bottom. You've got yours? And then, yeah, I'm gonna put mine in with yours. And now we're just gonna, so see, these are the 2 from the grill, and these are the 2 from just broiling in the oven. So I just want you to know that this is the consistency that you're looking for. I think it was about 5 minutes, 15 minutes every 5 minutes or so, we would turn them over. So even if you don't have a grill, you can still accomplish this right in your own oven. So we're actually gonna throw these, just the whole container, in the freezer for a minute just to get those cooled off before we throw them into our food processor, and we'll catch up with you in a... So we've got our tomatillas ready, and I've realized looking at the bottom of this is actually a recipe from Emeril. And like I said, this recipe for ranchero sauce calls for tomatoes, and so I'm switching out the tomatoes, switching out how I'm going to cook my ingredients a little bit, And like I said, I'm gonna turn this into an enchilada sauce, and I'm sure you could find lots of neat things to do with it too. So I've got all my ingredients here, a really simple recipe. We've got, it says for about a cup of onion. This, I don't usually do that. I just use a small onion or a half onion. It called for a cup of green bell pepper, and so I'm just using what I have left over. I know that's a half cup. That looks like about a cup. This is just as much cilantro as I wanted. Right here we've got, I got a can of those pickled jalapenos one time, and then I transferred it over into a mason jar, and we just keep that in the refrigerator. That way when we need a little bit of spice, we can just get one of those out. And some people here like spice, but our little girls, we've got one that's kind of finicky. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. So we usually, when it calls for a jalapeno, we just put half of one in there and we take all the seeds out. So, and then the other thing it calls for some bouillon, and so I've got out some Better Than bouillon. I love this because especially in the fall and the winter, we use so much broth or bouillon in the different soups that we make. And so I picked that up at Costco. I've got a beef one, and I just looked online and found out that they've actually got a vegan one. So I can't wait to find that because I use a lot of vegan broth too. And that's something I want to throw in to this mix with you, is we're actually gonna move this forward into cheese enchiladas. But the cool thing about having a sauce, and the reason why I like making my sauces, is because that's one thing that I don't have to buy in the store, and I can use natural ingredients. And I know that when I pour it onto my enchiladas, I'm not pouring it from a can, and it doesn't have some weird residue in the can that I don't know anything about. And back when the girls were really little and I had a lot of time at home, I just started making as many things as I possibly could from scratch. So here we are now. All right, the point that I wanted to make is that once you've got this base enchilada sauce, you could add anything to your enchiladas if you wanted. If you wanted to have vegetarian enchiladas, I would take some red peppers, some green peppers, any other kind of vegetables that you like. I would probably roast them out on the grill or roast them in the oven, slice them, dice them, chop them however you want. You could roll those up into your tortillas. If you had some leftover meat from one of your meals, you could put that in there. We've done that before. So there's a lot of different ways that you can change up and mix up your enchiladas. Sometimes we even just put sour cream in there from Ponchos. If you know anything about Ponchos, like the original Ponchos in like El Paso, Texas, good sour cream enchiladas, and I about got it hacked. So one thing that I change up when I'm cooking almost 90% of the time, maybe when Seth's cooking, he does it a little bit different according to the directions, but if it calls for oil to begin like sauteing your onions or sauteing your base vegetables, I learned a long time ago you can use about a tablespoon of water and you're going to get the same effect. Even though it's the belief system is that the oil is holding some of that flavor, so is the water, and it's just giving something to keep the vegetables from you know, getting sticky. So this is going to brown just the same in this as it would if it had some oil in it. So we're just going to get this going here for about, I think it says about 3 to 5 minutes. And that's something, if a recipe gives you a time frame to cook something, the easiest and best thing to do is just do it like that. That way you can continue on with your ingredients, come back when the timer goes off, and keep going with the steps. Okay, so the next thing I want to touch base with you, because we're going to get moving pretty quickly once these onions get done. We've got the tomatillas in the freezer, and I could take them out and chop them up, and if that's all you've got in your kitchen is a cutting board and a knife, then do that. Just give them a rough chop, nothing neat, just kind of get them chopped up really, just chunky-ish, you know. But to save time, I'm just going to throw them in the food processor, and they're going to be one of the last things that we put in here. And so it's going to be pretty exciting. Once we get everything done, I'm going to pour everything into this bowl. And the way I prepare my enchiladas, my aunts always used to take these and fry them in a little bit of oil to loosen them up. You could either just throw them in the oven for a couple of minutes also, or we just toss them in the microwave. Just something that's going to give it a little bit of flexibility. Once I've got my sauce all prepared, I'm going to take my tortilla, I dip it into my sauce. Once it's dripping in the sauce, I bring it over into here. Then I'm going to tuck my cheese in here, and I'm just going to kind of fold this over and gently tuck it here. One thing I left out is I'm gonna put some sauce here in the bottom, but I just thought I'd kind of go through this part of the technique with you so that once I get everything prepared, then I'm ready to roll. So again, I'm gonna take a tortilla, I'm gonna dip it into my sauce, I'm gonna bring it over here, I'm gonna put my cheese or my meat or my veggies, whatever my stuffing would be, I'm gonna roll it over, and the weight of the tortilla and the sauce is gonna end up keeping everything in there really. And again, if you're doing a vegan type meal, use whatever your alternative would maybe be to cheese. You could also put some scallions on top. You can get really creative with the things that you like to eat or that are in your dieting health spectrum of ways of eating things. So we've got just about 3 seconds left with our onions over here. So we're gonna come back over here, and in our onions, we're gonna throw in our bell peppers from the garden that we froze just so we wouldn't lose them in the refrigerator. We're just going to give that a good toss around too. It's getting smelling really good. Really good. I might just throw a little pepper in there just because we like it. We're going to let this just run around in here for a little bit, soften up the bell pepper that we just added. And again, see how that just, the onions came right down and did the same thing that they're supposed to when you put them in oil, but you didn't have the added stuff of oils. And again, for my vegan friends, you'll really appreciate that aspect to this type of way of cooking your onions or sauteing your small vegetables as you get ready to move along there. Now that this is starting to steam back up, I'm going to go in with my spices, and I'm just going to kind of shake them around a little bit, and then I'm going to toss my small sauteed vegetables around in that just to get all of that seasoning and spice mixed around. And we love a lot of cumin in this house, and the last time we made this we tend to add more cumin than anything asked for, and that's kind of the major spice in most Latino dishes is that cumin. But for this recipe, this is last time we overdid it like we always do, but this time we're just going to do what the ingredients called for, which was about a teaspoon of cumin. It was about a teaspoon of salt. I used a couple of cloves of garlic, and then what else did I do? Oh, it called for like maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. But again, because we don't do a lot of heat in this house, I just kind of sprinkled a little bit into my bowl. We do lots of garlic, so I always do as much garlic as I feel like. I just didn't really have that much good garlic over there. And let's see. We're also going to go ahead and get these jalapenos going in here. So because I don't have gloves on, I'm just going to use this knife to get them up on here. So now I've got I let my tomatillas cool off for a little bit. I threw them here in the blender with half as much of my cilantro that it called for. And now I'm just going to go into as small as you want it. Sometimes I like to leave. Okay, and we're going to call that good. And whoop, that'll work itself out. So we're just going to pop this out of here, our little spinning thing. I'll drop that over in the sink, and we're just going to pour this directly into what we've got going on here. And I always want to get everything out. I'm all about my spatulas because of that. If I cook it, if I grew it, if I bought it, I want to get everything out. I don't want to waste stuff. And I'm going to get my bouillon and put that in there. We've got a little bit of bouillon left over. And now we're going to simmer this for just about 15 minutes, and we'll catch back up with you at that time. All right. So we're back, and our sauce is all, you know, nice and thick here like this. Now I could see a lot of different opportunities here. Again, if you're going the vegan route, maybe you could add a little bit of cornstarch to this or whatever you use as a thickening agent. If you're, so far we're all at vegetables here, so I think if you use some gluten-free tortillas and, you know, the alternatives as far as cheese or other things that you put on top, you can kind of keep this in that gluten-free box too. Now, this is one thing that I have not learned or taught myself yet to make from scratch, but I will. Seth and I will get up to the challenge on this. Now, when my great aunt, well, she's not my great aunt, but when my Aunt Laura taught me how to make green enchiladas or cheese enchiladas, what she said is you just get a can of green sauce and you get yourself a can of cream of mushroom soup and you mix them together and voila, that's your enchilada sauce. So this is the thing that I haven't learned to make from scratch, but I was just reading the back a while ago and I bet you I could figure it out pretty quick. Get me some mushrooms going, maybe roast them or saute them for a little bit. I'm gonna come up with a cream of mushroom soup substitute, but until then, that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dump this over into my bigger bowl here. I'm gonna add this in, I'm gonna mix it up, and we're gonna start preparing our tortillas. And just as I get into that, I'll catch back up with you so that this isn't a million years long. And you'll see how I set it up just like I told you I was going to. And at the end, we'll give you a little shot of what it looks like before we go into the oven. And otherwise, that's gonna be about all of it for today, okay? Okay, so I'm back with my little hack sheet, and we actually came up with an idea while we were here sitting getting everything mixed up, and what we figured out is that we could easily make our own kind of like mushroom roux, which is essentially cream of mushroom soup. So just like I promised, I'm going to take a ladle of this and I'm going to empty out here into our dish, and that's just going to kind of give us a base for the bottom and a little bit of flavoring to eke it through the top. And I'm just gonna show you real quick. I'm gonna take my tortilla, I'm gonna dip it in here, get some flavor on it. I'm gonna come back over here. I'm gonna use my clean hand to get myself some cheese. Again, if you were doing roasted vegetables or meat, that's when you would put that in there. And so we're just gonna roll that over. I'm gonna get one more to show you, and then I'm gonna continue filling this up and catch back up with you in a minute. So one more, don't make it hard, just lay it right there. Get your ingredients inside of there. It doesn't have to be a ton of it. Just fold it over gently and let it lay there on its side. So it's not some secret art that you're missing out on or that you missed in home ec. So like I said, I'll catch right back up with you in just a minute and we'll finish getting these enchiladas made for you. We're back and I've got all of my dishes set up here. Just as a reminder, we feed 7 people, so and 2 teen boys, okay, so that's an important part. But here we go. I've got everything set up here in my dishes. This is my last one. I was starting to run out of sauce a little bit. Maybe I should have gotten it where it wasn't so thick, but I just spread it out and finished this last pan. And you know what, we'll eat these first 2, and if somebody's just needing something else, and they can get this. Now, I've always got a hard and fast rule that if everything is done in it, there's no need to run your oven and run your electricity for 30-40 minutes. So I'll probably do it for 15 minutes, and if it's bubbling and all the cheese is melted, I'll probably call it good. If not, I'll give it 5 more minutes, and I know by that point it'll definitely be bubbling and it'll be tasty and all those flavors will have infused. So I hope you enjoyed this experience of cooking with me and Seth and how we modify some ingredients, and I look forward to chatting with you more about how I do my meal planning, because I set a course to plan my meals every Saturday or Sunday, and I shop for that whole week. And even though I would love the thought of planning my meals out maybe 2 weeks or a month at a time, quite frankly, I just don't have the space to keep that much food right now. I've got a deep freeze. I got my freezer here. Probably should get another refrigerator, but I haven't. And at this time, we're just working through it. And I think a 1 week thing has been working for us, and it helps me stay on track with my menus. So again, thank you so much for joining in today, and I hope you have the best day ever.